Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Pakistan says Indian forces are subjecting unarmed Kashmiri youth to state terrorism by targeting them in fake encounters. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said occupation forces are spreading fear in the valley through oppression and persecution. This comes after a police report said Indian soldiers planted weapons on the bodies of 3 slain Kashmiri laborers. In India, the agitating farmers have called for a nationwide protest on New Year's Day to demand the repeal of new farm laws. Meanwhile, Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi says the government should talk to farmers and take back the black laws. Since late November, farmers have been camping on Delhi borders against a reform they say only favor big corporates. European ambassadors have given the go-ahead for post-Brexit trade deal to come into effect on the 1st of January. The deal, which was agreed on last week, will preserve tariff-free trade in goods between the EU and UK. The agreement is expected to be officially signed off by the two sides on Wednesday. Azerbaijan says one serviceman was killed in an attack by Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. In a tweet, the Defense Ministry said an armed group attacked units of the Azeri army in Khojavan. It said all 6 members of the illegal Armenian armed group were killed in retaliatory measures. South Africa has crossed 1 million cases of coronavirus days after a new strain linked to the United Kingdom was detected there. South Korea is also the latest state to report cases of the variant. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 55 lives and infected nearly 2,000 people overnight. The nationwide death toll has risen to 9,929. Globally, there are 1.7 million fatalities and 80 million cases. Pakistan were all out for 239 at the end of the 3rd day of the first test against New Zealand at Bay Oval. New Zealand will begin the 2nd innings with a 192-run lead tomorrow in Mount Maunganui. The second match is slated for the 3rd of January at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Pakistan says Indian forces are subjecting unarmed Kashmiri youth to state terrorism by targeting them in fake encounters. This comes after Indian police charged an army officer and 2 others for planting weapons on 3 slain Kashmiri laborers. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said occupation forces are spreading fear in the valley through oppression and persecution. He said young Kashmiris are being presented as terrorists and fake cases are registered against them to misguide the world. But Qureshi said the world has understood Indian designs and Delhi's grip over the valley is weakening. Meanwhile, Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry expressed concern over the illegal detention of Kashmiri leaders. He said their health is deteriorating due to inhuman treatment in jails amid a pandemic. Indian police have charged an army officer and 2 associates for planting weapons on 3 slain Kashmiri laborers. The officers made them look through as they were rebels in a staged gun battle in July. A police statement said Captain Bhupinder Singh has been charged with murder, conspiracy and other offences. He is now in military detention and the others are in police custody. The families of the victims say they were only looking for work in Kashmir's apple orchards. In September, the Indian Army admitted its soldiers had exceeded powers under the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which accords impunity to soldiers in the killing of the civilians. In India, the agitating farmers have called for a nationwide protest on New Year's Day to demand the repeal of new laws. Farm unions urged the public to support their struggle against contentious agriculture reforms. They also called for rallies in Patna and Thanjavur on December 29th and in Manipur and Hyderabad on December 30th. Meanwhile, Congress has decided to launch a dialogue program in Rajasthan to support the farmers. Leader Priyanka Gandhi said the government should talk to farmers and take back the black laws. More farmers from Maharashtra have joined the protest at Rajasthan-Haryana border, which has emerged as a new epicenter of the ongoing agitation. Farmers have been camping on Delhi borders for over a month now. In Afghanistan, at least one security official was killed and 2 others wounded in a Taliban attack on a Nardara district police headquarters. Local officials say the incident took place at night in Farah province. The Farah governor says Taliban detonated a car laden with explosive near the head office. He says security forces killed several fighters in the clearing operation. The Taliban have not commented on the attack yet. Meanwhile, the next round of talks between Kabul and the Taliban will be held in Qatar from next month. This comes despite President Ashraf Ghani's recent call for them to be moved home. Azerbaijan says one serviceman was killed in an attack by Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. In a tweet, the Defense Ministry said an armed group attacked units of the Azeri army in Khojavend. It said all 6 members of the illegal Armenian armed group were killed in retaliatory measures. The Defense Ministry warned of firm measures if such incidents recur in the future. Meanwhile, Armenian authorities have denied the clashes between ethnic Armenian and Azeri forces. Spanning over 2 months, the conflict came to an end with a Russian-brokered ceasefire agreement. Russia has sent additional units of military police to northern Syria's town of An Issa. The deployment follows the latest cross-border clashes in the area. In a statement, Russian Defense Ministry said Moscow noted the unstable situation in the region. It said the deployment aimed to step up efforts to stabilize the turbulent situation. Moscow urged both sides to de-escalate the tensions. The move comes ahead of talks between the foreign ministers of Russia and Turkey today. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will discuss Syria and other issues with his counterpart Mevlut Cavusoglu. Russia says NATO's growing air and naval activity near its borders may cause major incidents. Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin said this in an interview to a state-linked paper. Fomin said many actions of NATO, the US and the UK were openly provocative. He said incidents were avoided thanks to the high professionalism of Russian air pilots and sailors. Fomin stressed he will strongly advise all to refrain from trying to treat Russia from the position of strength. He said threats to use force are a direct violation of the United Nations Charter and such actions will get a proper response. Lebanon's Hezbollah says it can strike anywhere in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories. In an interview, leader Hassan Nasrallah said the group has twice as many precision-guided missiles now as it had a year ago. Nasrallah said Hezbollah warned it would retaliate when Israel threatened to target a facility in the eastern Bekaa region. He also said the last few weeks of the Trump administration were critical and called Trump angry and crazy. Nasrallah repeated vows that Iran and its allies will avenge the U.S. killing of Qasem Soleimani. He also promised to avenge Israel's killing of a Hezbollah fighter in Syria earlier this year. Senior Egyptian security officials are in Libya's capital, Tripoli, for the first time since 2014. In a statement, the Libyan Interior Ministry said the delegation held talks with the government of national accord. It said GNA Interior Minister Fatih Bashaha and Egypt's intelligence head Imad Trabelsi discussed ways to support the ceasefire agreement. They also discussed outputs of the 5+5 committee. In a tweet, Bashaha termed the meeting fruitful and described relations with Cairo as very important. The Egyptian delegation also called on GNA Foreign Minister Mohammed Tahir Sihala. Mohammed El-Balwi, a spokesman for the foreign minister, said Cairo promised to reopen its embassy in Tripoli. European ambassadors have given the go-ahead for a post-Brexit trade deal to come into effect on the 1st of January. The deal, which was agreed on last week, will preserve tariff-free trade in goods between the EU and UK. The agreement is expected to be officially signed off by the two sides on Wednesday. Senior British Minister Michael Gove warns there will be bumpy moments for British businesses as they get to grips with new EU rules. But he added that there will be procedural changes when the Brexit transition period ends on the 31st of December. Britain left the EU in January, but it remains under its trading rules until the end of this year. China has called on the United States to stop using Taiwan to meddle in its domestic affairs. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump signed into law the Taiwan Assurance Act, which enhances Taipei's self-defense capacities. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian was speaking at a daily news briefing in Beijing. He said Beijing also rejects the recently approved legislation on Tibet, which calls for the establishment of an American consulate in Lhasa and the absolute rights of Tibetans to choose a successor to the Dalai Lama, commenting on Hong Kong. Zhao said U.S. remarks calling for the release of 12 fugitives disregard facts. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a $2.3 trillion COVID relief and spending package into law. The move has awarded a partial government shutdown on Tuesday. In a statement, Trump said he asked Congress to reduce wasteful spending and increase paychecks to Americans. White House Deputy Press Secretary Judd Deere said a redlined version will be sent back to Congress, but the bill as signed will not necessarily be changed. Lawmakers now have breathing room to continue debating whether to revise the stimulus checks. The Democrat-led House is set to vote on the issue today. Republicans and Democrats have swiftly welcomed the president's decision to sign the bill into law. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now moving on to South Africa has crossed 1 million cases of coronavirus days after a new strain linked to the United Kingdom was detected there. South Korea is also the latest state to report cases of the variant. Globally, there are 1.7 million fatalities and 80 million cases. Details in the following report.
The frightening surge of COVID-19 and inoculations against the virus are treating the world hand in hand at this stage of the pandemic. Brazil's Vice President Hamilton Mourão has tested positive as the country registered 344 new deaths. U.S. top infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci has warned that the holiday travel can push the country to a critical point in the pandemic, while Mexico continued its vaccination plan by focusing on doctors, nurses and soldiers.
This is very important because we have to protect those who protect us. These people, especially those in the front line, are in contact with sick people. If they get sick, two things happen. One, they can transmit the disease not only to other patients but also to their families. Second, they would stop going to work.
A new faster-spreading variant of the virus has prompted more than 50 countries to impose travel restrictions on Britain. Saudi Arabia has extended a ban on entry to the kingdom by air, land and sea for another week. Meanwhile, France, Spain, Germany and Greece have started vaccinating elderly care home residents first. Meanwhile, Sydney is scaling back its New Year celebrations and has banned large gatherings that night amid an outbreak. South Korean officials say they will speed up efforts to launch a public coronavirus vaccination program. Elsewhere, local authorities in China are implementing strong epidemic prevention and control measures to curb the rebound and import of COVID-19 cases during the winter season.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 55 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This pushes the country's death toll to 9,929. Health officials reported 1,974 new infections overnight. Meanwhile, there are more than 39,000 active cases in the country. The health ministry says out of 470,000 countrywide cases, more than 423,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, Pakistan International Airlines is resuming commercial flights to Saudi Arabia to bring back stranded Pakistanis. The year 2020 is set to become the deadliest in U.S. history. Preliminary estimates by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show the number of deaths may exceed 3.2 million. CDC's mortality statistics chief Robert Anderson said life expectancy in U.S. can drop as much as 3 full years. Facing an acute surge in deaths, U.S. states are using and purchasing refrigerated trailers to store more bodies. In a statement, Los Angeles County Public Health Director Barbara Ferris said a person dies every 10 minutes in the area from COVID. With patients flooding hospitals and ICUs across the U.S., medical staff have long been overwhelmed. In the U.S. state of Tennessee, Nashville police have named the suspect in the camper van blast on Christmas Day. The blast left 3 people injured and disrupted communication systems in Tennessee and 4 other states. Officials said DNA collected at the scene matched that of 63-year-old Anthony Quinn Warner. They said Warner blew himself up in the explosion and appears to have acted alone. Public records show Warner lived in Antioch, southeast of Nashville, and his home was searched by FBI on Saturday. The FBI said there was no sign of more suspects and it was too early to suggest a motive.
Based on the evidence that we've gathered at this point, we've come to the conclusion that an individual named Anthony Warner is the bomber, that he was present when the bomb went off, and that he perished in the bombing. We base this conclusion on forensic evidence, including DNA evidence that you'll hear about, as well as evidence that was gathered at the scene of the bombing.
A Florida-based U.S. serviceman has been charged in the 9-time shooting that killed 3 people in Rockford, Illinois. Winnebago County State Attorney J. Hanley said Duke Webb was indicted for 3 counts of murder. He said 37-year-old serviceman was also charged with 3 counts of first-degree attempted murder. Duke Webb was taken into custody shortly after the incident as he tried to conceal his weapon. Rockford Police Chief Dan O'Shea said Webb was an active military man and investigators were in touch with the U.S. Army. O'Shea said the suspect had no known ties to the victims, adding that the shooting was a random act. The European Union has termed Pakistan a very safe place for foreign tourists and travelers. EU Ambassador Angela Kaminara said Pakistan is a land of hospitality and natural beauty. In an interview, Kaminara said a huge tourism potential exists in the country, particularly in the stunning north. She said Pakistan is lucky to have 6 World Heritage Sites. She said culture is an important part of EU's strategic engagement plan with Pakistan. She hoped more tourists from around the world could see the beauty that this country has to offer. Preparations are underway in New York as workers begin installing a new design of the Times Square New Year's bell. For a city struck early by COVID-19 and with a death toll near 25,000, many will welcome the chance to turn the page on 2020. This year's design is said to represent the gift of happiness. The event will be headlined by Gloria Gaynor, Jennifer Lopez, Billy Porter, and Jimmy Allen. There will be fewer than 100 people at the crossroads of the world touring in 2021. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and other essential workers will be invited to enjoy the celebration in socially distanced pens, while everyone else watches from home. The box office earnings of Wonder Woman 1984 have hit a pandemic high in a cinema and streaming showdown. The superhero franchise pulled in nearly $36.1 million at theaters worldwide over the Christmas holiday weekend.
The AT&T-owned studio Warner Brothers said around $16.7 million of the total came from U.S. and Canadian theaters. This ranks as the highest domestic box office opening since the coronavirus shuttered theaters in March. In a statement, HBO Max said the movie was also watched by millions at home in the U.S. via streaming. It said the total viewing hours on HBO Max tripled compared with a typical day. Warner Brothers has also confirmed plans for another movie in the franchise. It said the third movie will also be written and directed by Patty Jenkins and star Gal Gadot as a lasso-wielding warrior.
Now moving on to Colombia, a restaurant is offering a juicy 24K gold-topped hamburger for a whopping $60, whereas the price of a regular Big Mac is $5. More about the gold burger in this report.
A gold burger was unheard of until a restaurant in Bogota introduced it. The owner of the Colombian Toro McCoy restaurant says he was inspired by restaurants in Turkey where they serve a similar burger.
The idea of the McCoy Gold was born from a trip made by the owner of Toro McCoy to Turkey. He ate the steak with gold leaf, so he decided to bring the idea here to Colombia. It is a unique idea because you don't have to travel to try an experience like this.
The hamburger is sandwiched with double beef patties, caramelized bacon, crispy onions, and double cheese between the brioche bread. Finally, the burger is topped with 5 pieces of 24K edible gold leaves that are imported from the US. Each sheet of gold is 0.0015 millimeters thick.
People who have come to eat it say it is worth it. But there are also people who say they prefer to buy clothes or shoes for the cost of the hamburger, but that's their point of view.
The owner of the restaurant hopes to bring new culinary experience to Colombian diners unable to travel due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Now moving on to the business stories, with Britain and the European Union having clinched a deal, the UK is pursuing trade deals with the US, Australia and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said London will engage in trade deals with a huge growth market for the future. Trade Minister Liz Truss said Britain and Turkey will sign a deal that replicates the existing terms between Ankara and London. She said they expect to sign tariff-free trade agreements this week in the manufacturing, automotive and steel industries. European stocks are trading higher after U.S. President Donald Trump signed a $900 billion coronavirus relief bill into law. Frankfurt's DAX is leading the gains, rising by nearly 1.5%. The pan-European stock 600 has edged up, adding 0.5%. The CAC 40 in Paris has also edged up. Italy's FTSE MIB has added more than 0.5%, while London's FTSE 100 has gained marginally. Earlier, most Asian bourses traded higher except for Hong Kong's Hang Seng. Pakistan were all out for 239 at the end of the third day of the first test against New Zealand at Bay Oval. New Zealand will begin the second innings with a 192-run lead tomorrow in Mount Maunganui. Fahim Ashraf remained the top scorer for the Greens with 91 runs. Kyle Jamieson was the pick of the bowlers for his 3 wickets for 35 runs. Earlier, New Zealand were bowled out for 431, with Kane Williamson top scoring with 129 runs. The second match is slated for 3rd of January at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. In the English Premier League, West Bromwich Albion snatched a 1-1 draw against champions Liverpool at Anfield. A late header by Semi Ajayi cancelled out Sadio Mane's opener, stunning the Reds. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp said the drop with West Brom felt like a defeat. He said the players were angry at missing the opportunity to go 5 points clear in the league. Liverpool are frustrated as they are already missing defenders Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez due to long-term injuries. In another fixture, Wolverhampton Wanderers scored a late equalizer against Tottenham Hotspur and drew 1-1. Football star Cristiano Ronaldo has been named Player of the Century at the Globe Soccer Awards. The Portuguese beat longtime rival Argentine Lionel Messi to be crowned with the title. Details in the following report.
At a ceremony held in Dubai, the Juventus star forward picked up his award in person.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first ever Dubai Globe Soccer Awards Player of the Century is Cristiano Ronaldo!
The five-time Ballon d'Or winner said his success was not possible without a team, great coaches and clubs. In honor of his managerial career, Manchester City's manager Pep Guardiola was named Coach of the Century. Bayern Munich striker Robert Lewandowski won the race for Men's Player of the Year award. The German club's coach Hansi Flick was also rewarded as Coach of the Year. Real Madrid was named Club of the Century, with Bayern picking up the Team Award for 2020. Founded in 2010, the Globe Soccer Awards acknowledge excellence in football with an annual gala dinner and awards ceremony.
Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.